Alright. Hello everyone! Thank you all for, coming to, Game Dev Club today. Some important announcements before we get started with the talk. So remember, next week is Final Game Showcase. What does that mean? It means that your games should be done by next Thursday. But even if they aren't done, that's okay. Just bring what you have so that we can try it out because, all your hard work deserves to get recognized. Recognized whether it's finished to the point where you want it or not, right? So just remember, and we will also be starting at 6 p.m. next week because we're going to leave some room for play testing as well as awards and all of that since it's our final meeting for the semester. So as a reminder, Game Dev Club meeting next week, final showcase from 6 to 8 p.m. Okay, cool. So today, we're going to talk about something different today. So I want you all to take a look at what we have here on the screen. And I want you to observe how the environment looks, right? We have trees. All the foliage is like moving in the wind. We also have this huge forest with a bunch of different variation. All of this whole entire scene was made in approximately 2 days. Everything behind this, whether it's like the lighting and the way everything is generated here, as well as the way the leaves move, all of that is tech art. How many of you are wondering how this all works? Like, how do we get the trees to move like this, right? Well, that curiosity for how does this work, and how can we make it work, is really what tech art is all about. And that is what I'm here to talk to you about today. Next slide. It's not working. Hold up. Oh, there you go. Shoot, too late. Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about tech art, one of the key ingredients behind great games. But first up, what even is tech art, right? How many of you know what tech art is right now? Can I get a show of hands? Right? Not that many people know what it is, right? See, we had one stray hand in the corner. That's because it's one of those fields in the games industry, one of those career paths that is not, as well known to people. So what is tech art, or technical art? In the games industry, tech artists essentially bridge the gap between art and programming. And they push beyond the boundaries of what art is capable of with technology. And tech art is for everyone, right? It can be a very broad field. In the examples we saw earlier, there was some procedural content generation, which can include procedural generation, procedural modeling. But then there's also 3 other areas, like technical animation, which consists of rigging 3D models so that they can be animated, or even procedural animation. Another one is pipeline and tools. When you're in pipelines and tools, you focus on streamlining workflows for artists. You act as a pillar for artists to help make their processes more efficient so that they can focus on their art. Another one is graphics, which involves shaders, like making those leaves of the trees move, VFX, and simulations. But let's take a look at some examples, right? Let's take first a look at procedural content generation. I want you to look at the scene. Imagine that you're tasked to create this 3D environment. How long do you think it would take you to make this if you were assigned this task to do it alone? 1 year? Okay, there we go. Anyone else? 2 weeks. Okay, we have 2 weeks over here, right? A bunch of varying time, right? But let's say you only have 3 days. You have to make a bunch of tree variation, you have to make rocks, you have to make the blades of grass, right? And you have to place all of it down by hand. Imagine you had to place every single individual blade of grass yourself. That could take a long time, right? More than 3 days. And also, in what world will you ever be like, oh, when I grow up and I work in the games industry, I want to place blades of grass for a living, right? No one wants to do that. So that's where the tech artists come in. With tech art, you can find ways to streamline processes and make things, you can up the scale of what is possible with the work that you do. For example, like we had in the first slide, these are happy trees that me and the set made in approximately 2 days. It has, with a bunch of sliders and parameters, you can make a bunch of different tree variation. And with that tree variation, you can use it to create your environment, like with a whole forest if you wanted. So basically, just by using parameters, you can just adjust, like for example, the tree trunk's height, or you can adjust like how big the leaves are, things like that. Let's take a look at this tool as well, which is a scattering tool. Earlier we talked about having to place things like the grass individually by hand. But what if you could automate that using a tool, right? Which is a procedural scattering tool. You can have it, you can plug in some numbers and you can have it procedurally place everything across the map for you so that you wouldn't have to do it all by hand. For example, here in this image, you can't really see it, but there's like a bounding box, and when they move that box, it generates the foliage across that area. So for like when you're working in an environment and you're given such little time, these kinds of things, when it comes to like procedural content generation, can help save you a lot of time. Like what you said before, it might take you 1 year, now it might take a month, right? So this changes the scale of what you're able to do as a single person. And then imagine it in a team setting, right? That's why a lot of people are looking for procedural generation when it comes to their production pipelines. So let's take a look at another specialization of tech art. Let's take a look at pipeline and tools, what I talked about earlier when it comes to streamlining workflows. So let's take a look at a game like Overwatch. How many of you have played Overwatch before, right? Okay, a good chunk of you. All of you have seen how many characters that they have, how many skins they have for each individual character. Well, that is a lot of assets to keep track of. How many of you have worked in an engine before and had to implement all of your assets that the artist made for you? A good chunk of people, right? Something like that can be super easy to lose track of. Let's say you have like one character, they probably have over 100 skins for that one character. And every character has, a different model, a different texture, and it can get super lost, and you don't want to have to keep track of that and implement it by hand. There's so many different things you have to do. You have to get the model, you have to make sure it's rigged, you have to get the textures, you have to set up the textures in the material. It's just a long process that can take a lot of time, that's taking away from doing other things, like actually making the models themselves. But that's where tools and pipelines come in, right? Let's say you're an artist and you say, I don't want to have to, keep track of all these textures anymore, right? Well, the tech artist comes in and say, okay, I'll try and see what I can do to help solve your problem. A lot of what tech art is how can I solve the artist's problem? With some code and a clean folder structure, you can automate this process. For example, I can make sure that all textures are automatically imported into Engine and that they're automatically set up into materials. All of this tedious work, which could be hours and hours on end of work, it's suddenly automated into one button press. That's essentially what tools and pipeline is all about. So now let's take a look at Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and how graphics is such an important aspect for it. How many of you have played or at least seen this game at all? Right, most of you? Well, I'm sure all of you have seen the stylized look to it. Well, when it comes to game development, it's difficult to get that kind of look straight off the bat. Like for example, let's say this is what your concept artist made you. They want this super beautiful lighting and stylized look, right? But in reality, when you get it into the game, the lighting doesn't look exactly like how you expect it to. It's like everything doesn't just look right because that's how overall the game engine will render your assets. Well, that's where graphics and shaders and post-processing comes in. All of that makes this possible. For example, this is what Link looks like without cell shading, which is a type of shader that you can make. And this is how it looks after cell shading. Look at the key difference in how it essentially empowers the art to make it look more like the concept artist envisioned. This is an example of where shaders and graphics can come in to really push the overall art style of your games. And let's go back to the tree example too, right? all of these, all the leaves are moving in the wind. That's also done with shaders. The shader is essentially moving the vertices of the mesh around so that it can make the leaves move in the wind. So now let's take a look at technical animation. Here's Mario. Imagine you're making Mario and you want him to bring him into life with animation. You see, unfortunately, when you model characters in 3D, they don't just automatically move. You have to go through a whole process called rigging. And rigging is essentially like adding bones to your characters so that you can do what you want with them. The whole area of making all these controls, making it so that the mesh can deform, so that you can make Mario stick his tongue out and try to reach his nose. All of these things is possible because of rigging, which is just one of the other areas of tech art. And all the examples we looked at previously were all examples of how it looks in AAA studios, right? And I want to, essentially show you what that might look like on the student level as well. How can you implement some of these processes into your own games? This was Following You is a game that me and my team made earlier this semester. It's called Following You, and essentially you're a dog that goes through 4 different huge environments, uncovering footsteps to try and uncover a story. Why are you shaking your head at me?
You're not a dog?
Oh, sorry. You have a dog. You aren't a dog. My bad. Anyways, we were able to create all these 4 environments that you bring the dog through, and this was all developed in 12 days. The reason we were able to do it is because of tech art. We had PCG, the procedural generation. We had rigging for the dog. We had post-processing effects to make this cool effect that's in your surrounding environment, right? Imagine if we had to place all these trees by hand and make the whole entire game in 12 days. It just wouldn't be possible. But with tech art, we were able to make this happen. We identified what might take a long time, and we took advantage of that. We automated these processes so that we can push the scale of our game higher. So we talked a little bit about the 4 different specializations of tech art. But let's take a look at what tech art might actually look like when you pursue it as a career. Because I think that when it comes to tech art, there's a lot of ambiguities that comes with it. For example, there's a common misconception about a career in games. Usually, when people are choosing their career, ignoring the other areas like design, but let's say you have to choose either art or programming and only that thing. You can't do both, right? You have to choose whether you're going to do your job as an art or a job as a programmer. Well, that's where tech art comes in. It gives you the opportunity to do both as a career. You don't have to just stick with one. So if you're someone that likes programming and likes art, or just an artist that likes thinking about how things work, tech art is a great career path to pursue because you just really get to hit that balance and experience both in your day-to-day job. Being able to do both is one of the many reasons people end up switching into this career path and enjoy it. Doing both programming and art in one job, that's awesome, but it does come with its downsides. The thing is that tech art is not considered to be an entry-level role. What does that mean? A lot of people believe that you can't go into tech art straight after college, or after attending school, or after a while of trying to get experience, right? But why is that? Does anyone have any guesses in why tech art isn't considered an entry-level role?
Inherently interdisciplinary, so you should be able to have the skill to actually work with multiple people at once, and that in itself is not something that comes out of college just from school per se. Obviously, doing group projects, you're supposed to have that skill, but you don't actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Except it's even more than that. So what Carl said is that he talked about working in a team environment and having to work with lots of people. That is one great example of why it is not considered an entry-level role, but it gets taken even further than that. Like I said, tech art is both a combination of art and technology. which means that you have to be proficient enough in both areas, which can take a lot of time. You know, a lot of you here are pursuing just one of those paths, right? Some of you are in CS, some of you are in art, or some other degree like physics for some reason. No, I'm just kidding, Elijah, I'm sorry. But, but you know, it's like having to tackle multiple of these areas and being proficient enough in them to be able to function in this game environment, in this team environment, and support other people. That is one of the biggest difficulties about, you know, trying to get into tech art straight after college. However, personally, I think that, you know, all of this is like not necessarily true nowadays. Like, because a lot of, the thing is like, a lot of people end up in tech art at the moment. The people that are in tech art usually find their way in from other career paths. Usually they are an environment artist, or they're an animator, or they're even a software engineer, and then they transition into tech art once they have time to develop even more skills. However, I don't think it's impossible. A lot of people will say that entering tech art straight after college is difficult, but I believe that, you know, that like opinion is outdated because of the way things are changing in the industry. Before, like all of you here, you guys didn't know what, most of you didn't know what tech art was before coming in here, but now you do, and you're still in college, right? There was just a lack of awareness of what tech art was before in the industry, and before, it wasn't even really a role. Lots of people would do tech art things, but weren't labeled a tech artist. It just like wasn't a role that was around in a lot of studios. So, that being said, let's say one of you wanted to pursue tech art as a career right out of college. In my opinion, I say it's possible as long as you follow the right steps, find the right resources, and invest some time, right? Because inherently you still will have to learn some art, you still will have to learn some programming, but as long as you have, you know, clear set goals in mind, I believe that you can break into tech art right out of college. Yeah. So now the question is, should you pursue tech art, right? Let's go over some signs that you should become a tech artist. Number one, you like helping others. Like I said earlier, tech art is the bridge between art and technology, and that is because you are communicating with artists, you're communicating with programmers, and you're basically being that middle person. So you're going to be helping others and communicating with others on the daily. So if you're, like for example, if people come to you with troubleshooting issues for their computer, for example, and you enjoy troubleshooting their issues, then that's like, you know, one of those reasons that's a sign that you might become a good tech artist. I think my calling for tech art was when, between me and my cousin, whenever we played Minecraft and we had to set up mods and set up a server, I was the one learning how to set up mods and setting up servers at 8 years old. So, you know, doing things like that, there's little things that you might have in your own life. Those might be, you know, a reason why you might be a good tech artist. Another one is that you're curious and you love learning. How many of you feel like you never know enough about something? Right? A good chunk of you. Well, the best part about tech art is that, you know, it's an ever-evolving field. You will always be learning just because there's so much to learn. So a great thing about tech art is that, you know, it's just that never-ending learning process, and you'll always be learning on the job as you go. It's just, I think, if you're going to be working 40 hours a week, it's a great thing to be doing, just always learning, right? Some other signs that you might want to be a tech artist. For example, if you are a programmer that likes art, I know someone in this room that is a CS major and also does art, right? I'm looking at you. But so that's one of the reasons why you might become a tech artist, right? Or you might make a good tech artist. Another one is if you're an artist with an interest in how things work, right? If you're an artist and you want to learn how to, for example, let's go back to the tree example. If you want to make your leaves move in the wind and you're curious about how that works and you want to make it happen, that's another good sign that, you know, you might be a good tech artist. So we talked a lot about, you know, what tech art is, what makes a good tech artist, and what goes into it. But how can we, like, like I said earlier, it's a very broad field. And even as we went over the examples, it seemed like a lot, right? There was so much going on. But I think that's mainly because tech art is just an umbrella term for all these things that people do. But no tech artist does does everything, right? That's impossible. Because you can't learn shaders and rigging and simulations and VFX and procedure generation and develop tools for people. Like, that's just a lot. Some people might know a little bit about it, but no one's a master in everything. So, like I said, it's a very broad field. So how can you really dive in and learn more about it? Well, that is where I come in. I want to introduce all of you to Turtle Tech Art. Turtle Tech Art is essentially a worldwide tech art community, organization / nonprofit, but not tax exempt yet, that that me and Enlisette founded back in October 2024. It's essentially just a Discord server, but we've been building it up since then. Our goals are to connect tech artists all over the world. Our goals are to break down barriers into tech art careers. So if any of you here wanted to pursue tech art, we would help make that much more achievable for you. As well as, we want to expand education for tech art. Currently, in schools, there's not any, curriculums around it, right? There's no, shaders class. There's a rigging class, but only one, and it's, only in the animation program, and it's gatekept by the animation program. So there's just, there's just not a lot of accessible resources for it. And so that is the goal of our community. We have, ever since October, we were able to grow to the community to over 370 members. And, with that, we host a lot of community events. For example, tech art related workshops. A few weeks ago, we hosted a talk on intro to shaders so that, anyone who wanted to learn about shaders and a little bit about the graphics pipeline could learn more about it. We also have meetups. So if you wanted to see what other tech artists were up to in the industry, we would, provide that resource. We have a place where you and other people can meet and talk about tech art and what we do. And we also have tech art jams or competitions. We recently just wrapped up a jam that ended 2 days ago, I think. And basically the theme was growth, and everyone had to create something tech art related around growth. And we got a lot of examples of, plants, dynamic plant growing animations. So here are some ways that you can dive in and learn more about tech art. We also plan to build up a learning paths curriculum so that anyone who wanted to dive into tech art could have a structure and a place to learn that it's acts as a resource hub for you. And for example, here is us at GDC. This is where the Turtle Tech Art community that me and Enlisette co-founded, it really gained a lot of traction. We hosted a meetup. We had over 300 RSVPs and over 100 people come. Here's a little picture of us. There's me and there's Enlisette, and I think Hong went left to go to the building to the left to take his class. So he's somewhere over there. But yeah, this was us here at GDC. There's a huge community around it, and it's just awesome. So what are some reasons that you should join tech art, right? Over the last what time is it? I don't know. Last 20 minutes. Let's just make that number up. We talked about what tech art is and what it looks like as a career. If you love learning and you're curious about just about learning new things, this is diving into tech art is a great way to do that, and that's also one of the reasons you should join the community. And also, all of you know right now about the current state of the industry, or any industry in general. There's lots of layoffs going on. There's and it's hard to get jobs. Well, tech art is one of the careers that is rising in demand for. Lots of studios, lots of people are looking for tech artists in the games and animation industry. And tech artists also exist outside of the games industry. I knew someone that was in tech art that worked on creating Blender tools for this furniture company. It was because a lot of companies outside of games use like a lot of the same technology, whether it's Unreal, Blender, or Maya. Like there's like, car companies need it to simulate their I don't know, their car videos or whatever they do, I don't know. And also like, furniture companies want nice shots of their furniture. So it's just like, it's not only in games, this is an ever-growing field that, is only continuing to expand. And not only is it in demand in the industry, but it's also in demand at this school, right? How many of you are in a major that has some kind of thesis, like, I guess, BFA or project or something right, along those lines, right? Some of you, right? Well, when it comes to those projects, sure, you might have artists, for example. Like, let's say you're making a film. You might have artists. But do you have, like, the people with both the tech knowledge as well as the art knowledge to help push the boundaries of it, right? Probably not. So that is where, you can come in. There's so many, like, films going on, so many, like, thesis projects, or so many games at this club, right, that could benefit from having a tech artist. And if you are interested in tech art, you can come and help fill that gap. So yeah, those are some reasons why you should join Turtle Tech Art. And also, so what I just talked about previously is like this main overall organization that me and Endless had founded. But as a part of those goals, we're trying to expand education and bring more awareness for people that might want to pursue it. So that's why we're also starting a little Turtle Tech Art Club at SJSU. So if you want the chance to actually learn more about tech art, we're going to be having like little meetings and stuff next semester where we'll slowly introduce you to different specializations so that you have the ability and the resources to really dive in and explore as you want. So that's happening next semester. And yeah, so if you're interested in possibly joining, the Tech Art Club at SJSU next semester, make sure to scan this QR code for our Discord server. The meetings will not be during Game Dev Club, obviously, because I want to be at Game Dev Club and also do tech art stuff. So we have no current, schedule for when we would have meetings for tech art, but it would be outside of Game Dev Club so that you can do tech art things and do game things. Yeah, I'll leave the QR code up for a few more seconds. What's up? Yeah.
That's what they wanted to go. That's where it might be. What is the material difference between generative AI bullshit versus tech art and design procedural generation, algorithmic generation, that sort of thing? And then furthermore, it's like for building a game, there's usually some sort of creative vision. But at what point, would you choose to go the generative route to meet the vision versus just meeting the vision with individual artists working to get that point? Do you kind of...
Yeah. I follow. Because I think, unless you dive into learning more about what tech art is about, it's easy to, not be able to draw that line in your head between, what is AI versus, what is tech art, right? Because, I think just because not a lot of people understand, what's going behind this, right? I guess the thing about AI is that you throw in a text prompt, right? And then it'll automatically generate something for you. There's no control that's given to the artist. The artist, still isn't able to put their creative vision into things. Oh, I've stepped on something. It still isn't able to give their creative vision into things, and is overall the art and the creative aspect is kind of lost in the process of AI. But and this kind of looks I think if you just saw this and we said, oh, it's generating trees, you might think that, oh, that's how is that different from AI, right? But it's completely different. Essentially, I wish I had a picture, but essentially, procedural modeling is essentially just like normal modeling, except the software gives you the power to customize it more. So, for example, let's, how many of you have done 3D modeling before? Can you show of hands? Okay, most people here, right? So all of you know how to extrude your models and stuff. Let's take a look at this tree here. I have a parameter to change the height of the trunk. Essentially, what it's doing is I take that trunk and I just extrude it up further. But I have it on the slider so that you can automatically just see different variations of the trunk's height. Those are like some ways that, like there's still a lot of control involved in comparison to AI. And, there's still like an artist behind it, right? Because someone has to understand how do we, create this at all. There's still just a bunch of algorithms behind it. Like for example, all the leaves and stuff is like a sphere mesh that I created, and I just added some noise to it so that it's a little bit deformed. And that, so there's still a lot of art aspects behind it. It's just basically what procedural generation gives you the power to do is essentially you can assign numbers so that you can create more variation. Like I said with the trunk height, you can make it taller and smaller simply just by adjusting a number.
So still to this day, you feel like in your bones there's a material difference between what everyone thinks AI is going to be versus what you're actually doing as a tech artist. Like this specificity is materially different than just asking a prompt in some kind of generator.
Yeah, 100%. Tech art is very different from what people do with AI. There's just because it's like inherently you're working. It's like you're an artist, but you're still working with technology. The technology is essentially empowering you to do more, without taking away that art aspect. I don't know if that was a.
No, that was great. I mean,
okay.
The AI really would say exactly what you said, but in their difference, But like I'm curious what the difference is. I'm trying to visually see like, is that real? Is that material difference? Like, can you feel that? But again, I think I started before I started, actually knowing what the difference is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Thank you for your question. I think that was a good thing to highlight, just because I think, especially for a lot of artists out there, with AI coming in, that's a huge fear. Yeah, for a lot of people. Yeah, and like, for example, outside of procedural generation, like I said, there's a lot more to it, right? You just have some code that helps automate your pipelines. You might have, you might use some graphic stuff to just help push the visual style. So there's a bunch of areas of tech art that also are away from that generative side. But they're, just key difference is procedural content generation is separate from generative AI. Okay, and outside of the SJSU Tech Art Club Discord, we also have the main Discord, the one with that is worldwide. So we have people all around in Europe, in Asia, in the U.S. We have people all over the world. So these are tech artists from all sorts of backgrounds, right? If you want to join that, here is our community here. Feel free to join our Discord server. We have lots of other events going on as well. And yeah, can I get it? Thank you guys. Yeah, I hope you all were able to learn more about tech art by being here today, especially because it's not a career that's as well known to lots of people that are students or like are pursuing the industry. So yeah, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Cool. Well, if you do have other questions after or are thinking about pursuing tech art, feel free to come talk to me afterwards. I'm always happy to talk more about tech art. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.